Are you looking for a way to scale your short-term rental business and buy more properties? Well, co-hosting might be the right fit for you. Welcome to the Co-Host Coach podcast with Joe Roney. This episode of the Co-Host Coach is brought to you by Savvy STR Agents. If you're looking to buy a short-term rental, then contact the STR Savvy Agent team at savvy.realty.
All right, guys, welcome to the Co-Host Coach podcast. I am super excited today. I have the OG of my mastermind, the one, the only Austin Spitz. I am so excited that you are on here to be my first guest on this podcast. How's it going?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. I'm doing good. Super honored and excited to be here. That was like the first question I was going to ask. Was I the first guest? I didn't know how many you've rolled out. Your studio setup looks super awesome, by the way.
Yeah, I'm pretty pumped about it. You know, my first few episodes really kind of talked about co-hosting and what co-hosting is all about. And there's no one better to bring on than the OG and talk about your journey. So let's talk about your short-term rental journey and kind of how you got started.
Sure. So it started maybe about 3 or 4 years ago. I bought my own in the Texas Hill Country. I bought my own vacation home, and what I did was really just start from the ground up and kind of learn the skill set of how to be a very, very good operator and operate to the best of my ability at a very high level and be kind of the best in my market. So once I learned the skill set, I never was really interested into going into co-hosting or property management per se, but it kind of just led down that road, and I just started putting it out there, and we were able to start putting on clients and stuff like that. So ended up organically building a management company, and yeah, that's pretty much it. So now we just own our property and then manage for other owners out in the Texas Hill Country. And I always kind of bluff my numbers when asked how many properties I'm at. So honestly, I'm at 8, but I'm just going to tell people 10 because I'm manifesting those extra 2 properties. So I'm not a fraud, but I'm going to go ahead and say, when people ask, I'm going to add maybe 2 properties on there just because I'm already thinking ahead, the next 2 properties I need to sign them. So yeah.
Yep. That's awesome. That's awesome. I can tell you, we met just under 2 years ago at the Build STR Wealth Conference, and that was, for me, a life-changing event because I got to network with people like you and Zach and other people that are in the mastermind, and, that network has really helped me grow. But how about you? Does that network really, been beneficial?
Oh man, it's been crazy, dude. It's everything. It's seriously everything. We had Bill Faith on our podcast a week or so ago, and I'm pretty sure it's out now. And I just thanked him at the end of the podcast, just saying thank you for putting those events together, and other events too, but specifically his where I met you. And I told him just thanks for doing that, because the amount of friends and the amount of people that I've met in the industry because of that conference is it's probably triple digits. I've made so many friends in the industry, and maybe it hasn't necessarily reflected in gaining business deals, but it's just having such a strong network of like-minded people that are doing the same things that I can just kind of rely on, exactly like you, and how our relationship has kind of grown over the last 2 years, where we met 2 years ago, and maybe you had 1 or 2 properties or maybe none at all. I can't remember, but you were already going down that road. And then, through the power of networking, you just started a mastermind group, and we just started having calls about all people doing the same thing. And at the end of the day, I know you learned a lot from all of us too. And then, we were able to learn a lot from you in the process as well.
Yeah, it's definitely been a pretty amazing couple of years. I mean, watching your growth and what you've done to scale. Really, it was about this month last year that you got your first co-host property, August, September last year. Is that right?
Yes, that's when I got my first one. And sometimes I have a tough time. I always look at the next milestone, and I never look back and think how far I've come in over a year. I'm always just I have a toxic mindset of what am I missing and why am I not keep going? So I like when you say that, because it makes me look back and dang, over a year year ago, I got my first one. A year went by, had some overly aggressive goals, like we talked about in our mastermind, but I still got to 8. So if you're actually thinking about it, essentially I 8x'd my business. I mean, it's kind of easy in the earlier days to say something like that.
Yeah.
But yeah, sometimes I forget that's happened, you know?
Yep, yep. What's really cool though is that out of everybody who jumped into the mastermind and started getting into co-hosting, and you were right, I think when we met, I had the two that I owned, and I had just signed my first co-hosting property, and it was for a friend of mine who had a cabin down in Branson. And so I was just kind of jumping into the game, and I wanted to learn more and become the best of the best. And networking with people like you has really definitely helped that a ton. But what's really cool is in the past, after you got your first co-host property, to how quickly you were able to leave that W-2. So what did that look like, and being able to just jump all in?
Yeah, I think it was a sign because honestly, I say I left my W-2, but they kind of left me really. So it was weird. So basically it came to a point where they said, hey, we eliminated your position and you can stay with the company, but you gotta move to another city. And I was like, I don't need to do that at that bad. Like I really don't have to do any of that. So I took the severance package. And then the company came back and they said, hey, change of plans. You can stay a few weeks later. You can stay in Houston. You can stay in your job. We don't have to move. Don't worry about it. And I was like, already at that point, a switch had flipped in my head to where I was like, I'm out anyways. I already like kind of was waiting for something like this to happen. So it kind of pushed myself off the edge. And then they when they offered the job back, I just said, no, thank you. And I just kind of bought into to just doing this myself. And since then, everything's been good. We make enough money to where just with the 8 properties, my first milestone to hit was to just make sure that all of my bills are covered. And I think, a lot of people look at it and be like, that's risky. Like you need to keep your job for as long as you can and do this on the side. I kind of disagree with that. I kind of think like based on mine, if you're obsessed and you're willing to just go all in and you have the financial backing already, because like I lived very frugally for the first, 8 years out of college. And I think to me, I don't really agree with that. It's like to me, if you look at it as a side hustle, the people out there that are not looking at it as a side hustle are going to take your business because that's their main hustle. So I think I just got to the point where I was like, I'm just going to go all in on that, and I did that. And the first milestone was pay all the bills, so I hit that. So now it's like, okay, what's next? Now we need to meet another income goal that I'm trying to get to. But yeah, so to answer your question, um, I don't have a plan to get a job anytime soon. I just want to keep doing this, and I'm making money, so bills are paid. And I think at the end of the day, I'm building something for myself and my future family versus like building a business for somebody else. So I like the concept of that, and I like the concept of yeah, I got to answer to clients, but I really don't. I guess they're essentially the boss at the end of the day, but I really don't have like a direct boss telling me what to do every day, and I like that freedom there.
Well, yeah, and you're not trading time for money anymore, right? That's what you've been able to, get away from. You're not going down the rat race and building somebody else's dream. You're building out yours, right? So, and 8 properties in 1 year, even if you only doubled that in the next 12 months, which I have a feeling it's going to be more, but even if you just double that, a year from now you're going to be managing 16 properties and over doubling your income because I know you're already going after more lucrative properties and higher end properties. So the sky truly is the limit. What is your end game? What's your goal and how many properties do you want to manage?
Man, that's a good question. I think that's something to answer your question. I think that's something I really need to sit down very, very soon and dial in. So I'll be honest with you, I don't know, and that's not a very responsible answer as a business owner. But I'm open to sharing that and saying that it's one thing that I really do need to figure out. What I knew was I was going to go and I was going to go all in, and this is what I was going to do, and that's as far as it goes. But now I'm getting to the point where it's like, okay, now that we're starting to build this business, I do need to come up with more of like a 5-year, 10-year. We talked about that on the phone the other day. And it's kind of like, yeah, I keep signing properties, but like, what do you envision for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years? Like, how do you want your life to look? What are your end goals? And you were kind of, talking to me about kind of getting that stuff more dialed in. So I think to answer your question, I don't have anything necessarily to share because I haven't quite figured out how I want my future to look while I'm also building this. I just got so in the weeds of like, hey, just build this business and make money that I've kind of got lost in the process and the basic fundamentals of setting like these milestone goals have kind of fell through the crack, and it's honestly something that I need to get dialed in like ASAP.
Yeah. And you will, and I have no doubt that you will. And the biggest thing that you can do is write it down. Once you set that goal, write it down, and now you have something to look forward to every single day to work towards, and make sure whatever those goals are written down. So, a lot of people that want to get into co-hosting, they own one short-term rental, maybe they own two, and they're thinking, okay, this would be a good way for me to grow and scale. But a lot of people feel like, running a short-term rental, they can just do it in a couple hours a week, and it's not really taking a lot of time. So, what has been your experience, and what kind of hours do you think you put in? Not going after new clients, right? We're not talking about, growing, but just what you're currently managing on a weekly basis. Kind of what's your day look like, and how many hours do you think you're putting in?
I think it's probably equivalent to like a regular 9 to 5 job where I'm at. That same amount of time. The thing is in the way it is in this business, it's like it's not always like Monday through Friday 9 to 5. So it's like I may not do anything on Monday, or maybe an off day on Monday or Tuesday, but Saturday and Sunday maybe I'm working. It just depends on kind of what the schedule looks like. So um, yeah, from an hours perspective, I would just say at 8 properties, and there's so many hats that you have to wear. So whenever you're doing one or two on the side, yeah, that's fine. You can go to work and you can do that. It's not that demanding, but it's just like things start to compound. And I think that at like 10, I think at the 10 area, I feel like that's the perfect time where you get a VA and start getting help with that. And to me, I think 10 properties, managing 10 properties is essentially a full-time job. I mean, and all the extra time you have to allocate into growing your business, there's just so many hats that you have to wear, and that's something like you have to take into account, because you might have not anything to do on your business, but there's never enough time to be reaching out to people. Like you can never quantify that into time. So if you do work 30 hours a week on your business and your goal is 50 hours a week, then you have 20 hours to spend on trying to get new clients and growing your business. Because if you're not growing your business, well, eventually a house in your portfolio is going to sell and the owners are going to want to get out. Maybe one of these days that something falls through the cracks and you get fired. Or maybe you don't like the owner and you have to let them go, which we've done before. And if you're not selling, then you're just kind of just going backwards. So you can't just be like, oh, I just met my 10 property goal and I'm set. Well, what happens when one or two of those properties sells? You got to be able to replace them if that's your goal. So I don't know. I hope that kind of
Yeah.
answered your
No, that
question.
that definitely does. And I'm kind of in the middle of that right now. One of the houses that I co-host is going on the market this week to be sold. Obviously, I hope that the new owners will, see what we've done and want us to manage it for them. But if they're an investor that wants to self-manage, then, we're going to be down one property. We do have a few in the pipeline. We have a few that we're working towards, and I agree with you. You have to keep working on building your business, and I think that's the message is, you know, don't want people to jump into this business thinking, okay, I'm going to work a lot less hours and have this financial freedom. Now, that being said, you recently added a virtual assistant, and how has that helped?
It's been very, very, very helpful. I just started trying to switch my mindset from like doing everything and wearing all these hats. So I tried to switch it into like every time I do something, I think, how can I get them a virtual assistant to do it? Or how can I get somebody else to do this? Because I want to not do all these tasks. And I think it's been very helpful in my business. It saved me a lot of time. And I think it's just in those beginning phases where I'm still training them, helping them create SOPs for the things they're doing, and then trying to get them to really do everything uh, within the business. So I necessarily don't have to do all these, low level tasks that don't make me any money, or they're very, very time consuming. So I can focus on business development, or something that actually makes a difference in the business. And I think I'm at that point now where if I didn't have a VA, then I would just spend most of my week doing admin work. And then it's like, okay, now I'm an admin. And then to your point, like what you were talking about is like, our goal here is to actually build a real business. We're not really trying to create a second job. And in this process, in the startup phase, is like, I definitely created a job for myself. So I created a job for myself, but I think you have to do that in the beginning, because you have to do every single thing, because you can't tell people to do something that you don't even know how to do. So
Exactly.
I've created a job for myself. Now I'm looking at turning that job into essentially more of a business, and the more I can get rid of stuff and get out and play business owner and have the systems and processes. And I think that's the failure pivot point for most businesses, is they fail to the level of their systems and processes. So like, you might be a good plumber, but at the end of the day, are you still making the house calls? Are you still doing all the work yourself? And you'll never be able to grow that way. So I think most business owners fail by not creating good systems and processes and kind of like building out a business. So not to say I'm an expert at that, but I'm in that phase currently of turning it into a business, not a job.
And I think that's important. And I think, you and I have kind of grown together in this business and done things very, very similar, when it comes to it. We're in completely different markets, completely different areas of the United States, but building very similar businesses. And it's kind of where I'm at as well. And the virtual assistant that has been working with me, it's like, man, it just saves so much time to work on important things, and not that those things aren't important. They are. But, when you get into any kind of business, you got to know what your genius zone is. And whatever that genius zone is, where you need to spend the majority of your time and have somebody else taking care of everything else. And it's one of the things I love and admire about Michael in our mastermind is that he knew from the get-go, I'm going to have one property and I'm a virtual assistant before I even grow. Like he's already got things in place. So as he grows his business and grows his co-hosting business, he's already got all of that in place. Now, he kept his W-2 job, so right now it's just a side hustle. This is our full-time gig, so we had a little bit mindset of difference of going into it. I don't think there's anything wrong on either way, but do you regret waiting so long to get a virtual assistant now?
No, I don't think so. I think maybe, but not really. See, his situation is a little bit different. Like you said, he had his W-2 job, so he has that extra income coming in. So like, even if he gets his first property and the property pays for the VA and a little more, like that's already a win in itself, because he's already, he's already got his W-2 paying him well enough. He's got the insurance there. So he's got that going. I think probably I could have done it a little bit earlier, but like, when you think about it, really, like, how early is early when I've only been co-hosting for a year? So I feel like I probably did it at the right time. There's always could have been earlier where I could have saved some time, but I think it's different situation for him. But to me, his situation is a little bit better. I like that setup because he's just I didn't leave my job and then go all in. It's like he's building it while he's doing it. So it's like, okay, I still have to do my job for 40 hours a week. So I actually need this VA to be really good and start managing this. And I think from a growth perspective, that's better too, because he'll get all the fundamentals down. And then whenever he continues to add properties to a portfolio, it'll just be a little bit easier on him. So I don't think there's a right answer. I think it's situation dependent,
Yep, and I wanted to bring that up for the listeners because there are people that are going to jump into this business and they're not ready to leave their W-2 yet, or maybe they don't even want to leave their W-2. They want to build a co-hosting business, but they love what they do. They have no desire to leave and start something full-time, but this can be an extra side hustle for them to, save more money to buy more of their own short-term rentals or use it for other investment purposes down the road. And so there is, like you said, there's no wrong way to do it. Just kind of a difference between what you and I have done and what others are doing. And there are a lot of other programs out there, that teach it the way Michael's doing. And, there's a lot of people that are doing it the way we are. So, one of the cool things you talked about earlier is your podcast. So after the Build STR Wealth Conference #2 that we went to together, this year, you met Matt Codd and you guys started a Co-Host Bros podcast, which I listen to every week and thoroughly enjoy. So how did that come about? And, how's that going? I think you're up to almost 30 episodes.
Yes, it's great. And we've had a lot of great guests like yourself, of course. And it's been good, man. It just goes back to the power of networking. If I never would have went to that conference, I would have never met him at the airport. And I think it was when I was living in Houston. So we moved to New Braunfels for people that don't know. So I don't live there anymore, but I met him at the airport. He was leaving the conference. He had a conference shirt on. I just was like, hey, I'll talk to him. Started talking to him. We are getting on the same plane. So I knew he's lived in Houston. And then basically he just expressed interest of like, hey, you're like 15, 20 minutes away from me. And I was like, yeah, there's not really a short-term rental meetup in Houston. I've been on the prowl looking for a while. So he took that upon himself and I kind of helped him, but I would just say that was his venture and he still runs it. And he started the meetup, and the first meetup had like 20 or 30 people, and we just started there. And then he was like, okay, well, I've always wanted to do a podcast. And I was like, okay, well then just do a podcast. And he was like, yeah, well, I don't know. Would you do it with me? And then I was like, yeah, sure. And we just started doing it, and it's fun, and it's 30-ish episodes, like you said. We do 1 or 2 a week. And I think the thing about it for me is it's also educational, because everyone that comes on there, I kind of can selfishly ask questions that I want to know the answers to, but also everyone else also wants to know these answers. But they help me. So it's almost like we're getting to do a podcast. We get to have people on there, and I can kind of ask the questions that I want to know the answers to, and people that are all like at a very high level, like Bill or something. I'd be like, oh, I get my chance to have Bill on our podcast, and I can ask him whatever I want for an hour. Like it's really good. And it's also like been a huge learning experience, like educational for doing that. And yeah, it's been fun doing it. I definitely recommend it.
Yeah, no, definitely. I enjoyed being on that one, and like I said, I listen every week. I mean, you've had some goats on there between Bill and Brenna and Patrick, and there's just some really awesome guests. So if you're tuning into this, make sure you slide on over to check out the Co-Host Bros podcast, and then now you just keep growing, and you have podcast number 2, and just started filming that recently. So what's your new podcast all about?
We're still figuring it out, honestly. It's at like a studio kind of setup, and it just kind of came from a collaboration in the area. And I when I moved to New Braunfels, I started a real estate meetup group just to meet more friends. No specific like angle or anything like that. I just wanted to be like the guy that hosts the meetup. Why not? So started that. Met Lindsay. She's my partner in it, and basically we just started a podcast together. And the podcast is just kind of geared towards what we talk about at our meetups and the networking. And then we kind of have once a month we'll have someone come on from the meetup that we had to talk about their experience, talk about their business and stuff like that. So it's a very local to New Braunfels one so far. And then yeah, it's just based off of our meetup. So we only have, I think we just did our 3rd episode. And I didn't plan on all this. I wasn't like, hey, Austin, you're going to be a podcaster. It's just like these things just kind of fell in my lap, and I just like keep saying yes. So I'm like, it can't hurt me. And it's just helping me build a brand, which is so important over a long period of time, which you've done a really good with your flag in the back. You already got, you're crushing it. But the thing is like, that's so important over a long period of time, because you just need to continue to build that credibility. And if people don't know what you're doing, they're never going to think of you. So if you're always posting on Facebook, Instagram, and stuff like that, like you're doing with the Panama City Beach stuff, people, as soon as they think of Panama City Beach, they're going to think of Joe, because that's where you own and manage and you dominate, and people see all your content. And it's just so important, because a lot of business wouldn't even come if I just never posted, or I just would kept things quiet. And it shows the importance of like really putting yourself out there. And if you don't, people are going to forget about you.
No, I agree. And the networking, and we've talked about it a lot on this podcast, is so crucial in this business. And actually, one of the coolest things that I love about this business is that everybody is so welcoming. There isn't this is I don't want you to steal my business, or I don't want you to do that. There's enough business out there for everyone. And I want every single person I come into contact with to win. And if I can have a little bit of a part of that and seeing them win and be successful, then that makes me happy, because I'm watching that. And I've seen you help so many people in this business, whether it be little phone calls, the meetups that you're doing, and even in our mastermind, where you're having calls outside of it with some of the others. So, our mastermind obviously is growing. We got a few new people that have joined recently, and I think they're kind of calling and seeing what you're doing. So, how's that going? Have you had some pretty good conversations with any of the new people and existing of kind of what that looks like outside of our weekly calls?
Sure. Yeah. I just open myself up to anybody that's in that mastermind community, just to have access to me, because you've done so much to help me out. It's my turn to give back to other people in the group. So, yeah. And I think it's also like it's kind of a selfish thing too, because I can sit here and say, I'm a great human being because I'm helping everybody. Yay, go Austin. But really what it is like, I get satisfaction from helping people. And that's why I know like you started your co-host coach program, because you wouldn't do that if you didn't like exactly seeing people win. So I think we all really do want to see people win. Yes. But also there's that feeling of like, damn, dude, I just helped them and I feel really good about what I did. So in a selfish way, it's kind of for me to just just feel like I'm doing my part as a good human being to help people avoid some of the pitfalls that we've gone through. But yeah, I'm always open to anyone that's in your specific mastermind group to help. And it's becoming another learning experience to where, as kind of I'm establishing myself as a figure in this industry, it's like people are wanting a lot more of my time. So there is a point where it's like, okay, probably not people in your mastermind group, but like eventually, like I'm gonna have to start charging people to pick my brain, because I can't just sit there and let everybody pick my brain all day long. Even the people that we want to get on calls and learn from, they charge an hourly rate, and they don't want to get coffee with you. They don't want to get dinner with you. They just want you to pay for their time, whatever it's worth. And you take that time to get the results that you want. They're happy, they get paid. So I think I'm getting to a point where, probably now, but I need to just charge hourly calls and something like that. I'm sure you probably do that already, but I don't think it's I know a lot of people do, but I don't think it's necessarily anyone in the mastermind group. If they're already in the mastermind group and we're interacting with each other every day, I'm not going to be like, hey, no, just any of those. Those people are always, my phone's open, because I know there's somebody in that group that has a better skill set at something that I don't have. And whenever I need to call on them, I'm going to call on them, and they're going to answer for me. And then whenever they need something, it's just going to go back and forth, because everyone just has different skill sets. And that's the best thing about your mastermind group, is that there's just so much in this business that to be good at, it's impossible to be good at everything. Like, you could be average at everything at best. A B player all around makes you, to me, a great co-host, because this shit is hard and there's so much stuff that goes into it. So having people like, say, Michael, for example, that I can lean on systems and processes, and then maybe like Philip, I can call for certain management things, and just whatever the pricing optimization or whatever it is, there's somebody in that group that's really good at that. And then they might lean on me for dealing with owners or whatever my skill set that shines through. So I think, in the mastermind group, it's just everybody's got such a great skill set that I'm happy to talk with anybody, whenever they need help.
Yep, and I agree. My phone is on for anyone in the mastermind as well. And then obviously a lot of people schedule calls with me, and I'll do a quick 10 to 15 minute call with someone to, help them out a little bit without, doing a charge, because I truly want to help people in the industry and help anywhere I can. But if somebody calls me and says, "Hey, I need a couple hours or 3 or 4 hours or, whatever it may be of help," well, at some point, yes, our time is very valuable. No matter what business you're in, your time is valuable. And at that point, it's fitting to be able to charge for that. And, you're just hitting the beginning stages of building your brand, and the sky's the limit for what you've already accomplished and what you're going towards. So it's been pretty awesome to watch, and super excited to have you on today, because, like I said, you're the first host or first guest on the co-host coach. So.
And I'm honored. And I think when we were thinking about like long-term goals for me, I think kind of like similar to the mastermind, you never know, it might be someone in the mastermind, but I think for me, I'd like to get to a point where the time comes right, where I could potentially merge or partner with somebody else that maybe has the similar amount of listings that can bring that kind of value, but maybe their skill set offsets my skill set. Maybe they're very data and numbers driven, and maybe they have 15 properties and I have 15 properties, but we could somehow come together and have 30 properties, but their skill set, and then I can do like the sales stuff. So I think, I don't know, long term, maybe perhaps doing like a partnership where somebody can offset my skill set. That's just, sorry for the one-off tangent. I just randomly had that thought of like, man, that might be a good option at some point if it was to ever come about,
Yep.
It could be somebody in the mastermind group. You never know. Like, it might be somebody that I'm growing along with, and I'm like, damn, Michael, you got this skill set that I desperately need help with that. And he's like, well, Austin, you're a go-getter. You can go out and get clients. I'm a little nervous on the phones, whatever. And then he's just like, it just could be a perfect partnership, but I would never know without participating in something like what you have.
Yep. I actually have a call scheduled tomorrow with two people that want to start our co-hosting business as partners from the get-go, and they recognize that they each have different skill sets and they want to build and grow it together, and they're going to pick my brain a little bit tomorrow and, kind of see how I can help them. So super pumped about that and see how that takes off, because I could also see that in the future, it could take a little bit of burden off somebody if you have two people in the business. If you're growing to, like you said, 30 plus properties, most of these guys that are at 30, 40, 50 properties or more, they're not doing it alone, right? They have, not only do they have their virtual assistants, but they also have hired help or partners or whatever it may be. So there is going to be a point where that 40-hour a week job that you've created for yourself turns into an 80, 90-hour a week job if you don't build it the way, you need to be able to get the help. So,
Absolutely.
I think, really, really excited about having you on today. And super excited about getting together with you again at the next meetup, or maybe sometime before then. You never know what's going to happen between now and next spring, but definitely appreciate you coming on today, and we will definitely hopefully be on your podcast in the future.
Absolutely. Awesome. I appreciate you. Thanks for having me, Joe.
Thanks again, Austin, and thanks everyone for tuning in to the Co-Host Coach. This is podcast episode number 4, and I appreciate you guys tuning in.